Hey there everyone, this video is sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. More on that later, as well as a bunch of Byleth facts at the second half of the video. Now I've been thinking recently about some of the facts I know about, or things I see randomly on Twitter or discussed on my Discord. And sometimes I find myself thinking, man, that's really interesting, but it's a bit too useful for my videos. That's when I decided. Now, I'm not going to be actually renaming all of my past videos, but from here on out, I felt it would be best to shift the focus of the series. Well, not really, since, as people like to point out, a lot of my facts I put in these videos aren't really pointless, depending on the context. But now, I feel like I can just state whatever I need to. So really, don't expect anything different from this. We'll still just be getting our normal miscellaneous Smash Ultimate facts. So, speaking of which, DeathCorpse666 had brought up an inquiry in my server regarding fall speed. Every character has a set fall speed which determines, well, how fast they fall. And then they have a fast fall speed, which is usually a 60% increase from the base fall speed. So the lovely folk in my server did some testing about this topic in general, and they've decided that the wind and stage builder, when set to 100, is going at a speed of 2. When I say 2, I mean the unit of which fall speed is measured. You can look at the data on this website, ultimateframedata.com. When getting into this discussion, try to visualize the wind as water, and think of the difference between falling through the wind and being lifted up, as the same difference between sinking and floating in water. Now, the reason we decided it was 2 is because Fox, who has the fastest base fall speed, falls at a speed of 2.1, and he does not get lifted up by the wind, but rather slowly falls down. But the runner-up, Little Mac, with a fall speed of 1.95, does get lifted by the wind. And this gets more precise when we test with fast falling. Yoshi's fast fall speed is 2.064. When he falls, he goes through the wind, and incredibly slowly. Game & Watch's fast fall speed is 1.984. When Game & Watch fast falls, he doesn't go down at all. Of course I'm making assumptions, but it just makes sense to believe that the wind speed, at 100, is pushing with an opposing force of 2. What this means is that, in order to fall through the wind, the character needs to have a fall speed of greater than 2. Much like how any object with a density lower than 1 grams per cubic centimeter will float on water. That was a lot of prefacing, but trust me, it was necessary for this upcoming fact. That being Palutena. When I saw the people of my server discussing this, I brought up something I've thought about for a while. What about Palutena after she uses Warp? I always felt that she fell a lot quicker after using Warp, or something to that degree. Her normal fall speed is 1.55, so she won't naturally fall through the wind. Her fast fall speed is 2.48, so when fast falling, she will go through the wind. After testing it though, when she's used Warp, Palutena will just sit there. She won't float up or fall down. The most logical conclusion is that her fall speed after Warp is a solid 2, equal to the wind, thus she doesn't go up or down. So I think it's definitive. After Warp, Palutena falls faster naturally. I can only assume this is done to make the move a lot safer, I guess. I don't know how obvious this is, but I never really heard anyone mention it, nor did I see it on her wiki page. And just to answer any questions before I get them, we did test it, and just normal freefall from Palutena, say after Pac-Man's trampoline, does not affect her fall speed. And her fast fall speed after Warp is the same as her normal fast fall speed. I'll move on now before we stick on this topic for too long. Lightning the Hedgehog informed me of something regarding Young Link and King of Fighters. Watch what happens when I use Young Link's final smash in this position at, 50%? Sonic very obviously gets KO'd. It is a pretty strong final smash after all. But now let's see what happens when we use the final smash at 125%, but right next to the wall. Yeah, he still got KO'd, sure, but only at the second wall bounce, which would have had less knockback than the first hit anyways, yet that first hit did not KO. This first hit does eventually start KOing, around 150%, but it should have certainly started KOing a lot sooner than that. So, out of curiosity, I tried this with Toon Link's final smash, which is virtually identical. And the same thing happens. The first wall hit doesn't break, but the second one does. I wanted to test if this was just a general final smash thing, so I used the brand new Lolly PNG cutscene final smash to test this out. Just like with Young Link and Toon Link, the wall doesn't actually break, rather Sonic just dies off the top. I did test other moves, specifically Byleth's down B. It KOs at 35% just fine, but also KOs at this percent next to the wall. So I think this might be some kind of Final Smash exclusive mechanic, perhaps to make Final Smashes less broken on this stage? It is what it is. Oh, and just for those who will ask, Byleth's up B does not work on the walls of the stage, nor the ceiling. But we'll get to more Byleth stuff later. Right before I move on to the midpoint of this video, I want to very quickly go over a fact I got a while ago from Pelly Penguin UK regarding Kirby and the Copy Fighters in the World of Light final boss or whatever. Whenever you inhale or gain the ability of those Copy Fighters, the weapon you obtain will have a different graphic. I'm showing you some examples on screen right now that Pelly Penguin provided. I'm not going to go too in depth about this, and I've held off for talking about this for so long, solely because well, honestly, I just hate World of Light, and I didn't feel like going through the entire thing just for one fact. But I still thought this was interesting enough to bring to everyone's attention. Next up, Isaac Q states that if I use Hocus Pocus enough times, there's a small chance for something incredible to happen. So, naturally, I grinded out Hocus Pocus for about 500 hours, and eventually... Oh hey, it got me a sponsor. That's right, today's video is sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. Now, I know you've never heard of them before, so please allow me to enlighten you. Raid Shadow Legends is a free-to-play mobile app that functions like an RPG, where you obtain champions, fight enemies, gain experience, and collect artifacts. Normally, the high fantasy type of shtick doesn't really appeal to me, but I have to say the graphics of this game are very impressive, especially considering it's on a mobile app. It was one of the first things I noticed too. But beyond presentation is its gameplay. This is my own phone footage too, by the way. The combat system is pretty easy to grasp, especially if you have any experience in RPGs. No BS like updated autopsy reports or random crits in a fighting game. And, all in all, it provides exactly what one would hope for in an RPG-like game. Considering it's free, I think it's more than worth your time. A link to download the game can be found below, and thanks again to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring today's video. Now, let's get into the new blood of Smash Ultimate. I asked you all what you wanted to know or wanted me to know, and I think I've got a lot of interesting talking points now. There's only really two big things about Byleth, neutral B and up B, so expect these to be the focus of the rest of the video. First up, Belseb is telling me of an interesting property regarding the Fail Not projectile. They said that the base charge is a physical projectile, but the full charge is an energy projectile. The difference can easily be found with PSI Magnet, which only absorbs moves that are considered energy based. So the uncharged arrow, being physical, doesn't get absorbed, but the full charge does. So this is something to keep in mind with these niche scenarios. Tangent number 1, but I did want to see this move with Pocket as well. Pocket works fine with the uncharged version, but it doesn't work against the charged version. And to me, this relates to the staff item, which is fairly similar, at least in appearance and speed. You also cannot pocket the staff. I guess it's either due to the speed or the length of these projectiles. And final tangent of this fact, but here's a length comparison. The charged Fail Not doesn't go anywhere near as far as the staff does. But even the staff has its limits. It doesn't go on forever. And actually, neither does Genesec's Big Boy Beam. It's a lot shorter than I thought it'd be. Hell, even the Daybreak doesn't go on forever, which I found to be especially shocking. The only thing that I found that goes across the entire training mode stage was a projectile that Knuckle Joe could shoot. Next up, Mage asks if Byleth's bow can hit multiple people in a row, which reminds me of the light arrow item in Zelda. So I can see where the question's coming from. Unfortunately, the arrow will stop moving after it hits someone, which we can see with Luma taking the bullet for Rosalina. However, if two opponents are very close to each other, Fail Not will hit both of them, or if Byleth himself is very close to multiple opponents. The last fact regarding Fail Not is by Fabio Marone, regarding the qualities of the arrows on Mario Galaxy. Watch how the normal arrow goes. It sort of moves along the curve of the stage, allowing me to hit Hero on the other side. But when I use the charged version, it goes in a straight line from where Byleth is facing, thus completely missing Hero. Since we just recently went over the difference between these two arrows, I wanted to see if the same difference came into effect. The ray gun, also being an energy-based projectile, also moves in a straight line, as does the staff. However, the Star Rod projectile, as well as the Super Scope, move in a curve, like the uncharged arrow. And I also don't think it's related to speed, since the Super Scope shots are quite a bit faster than the ray gun shots. There just must be some kind of inherent quality to these projectiles that make them do one or the other. The Smash Wiki briefly mentions this as well, but it doesn't go in depth. But what we will go in depth about is Byleth's up B. First, yes, legend talks about the mechanics of Byleth's up B being used on walls. You can up B to grab the wall and jump off of it, and this action can be done a maximum of 3 times. After 3 uses, you cannot do it again until you get back onto the stage. Grabbing the ledge is not enough to reset it. This counter is separate from Byleth's up B though. If you run out of wall stabs, you can still use the whip to grab the ledge. And just like the wall stabs, you can only use the whip, or rather any tether for that matter, thrice before landing on the stage. The wall stab and the tether are 2 separate mechanics, which only have 3 available uses before landing on the stage. The animation once you've run out of tether uses looks pretty weird too. The whip will go way past the ledge, but this whip does not have a hitbox, so failing to grab the ledge in this case will not latch you onto someone else. To quickly add on, you can only grab the ledge normally 6 times before landing on the stage. After the 6th time, you will not grab the ledge, and in this case tethers will not work either. Using your tether will also add to its limit, whether or not you even reach the ledge after using the tether. Next, Boop Boop asks if Byleth's up B will beat Banjo's Wonderwing. And the answer simply is yes, it does. Though the question has merit, as the move will not grab someone who is shielding. This is called a hit grab, a grab that doesn't actually have priority over shield. You can find this in Buster Wolf and Isabelle's Fishing Rod too, just to give a few examples. All of these moves beat out Wonderwing, as they are grabs. But they don't beat out the shield. And funny enough, none of these moves work properly on an opponent who is in a tech situation. The same being true for Byleth. Only the extended part of up B though. If you're right next to the opponent, the first hit will pop them up and it'll still work. So this is still a viable combo route. Speaking of combos, I hate getting comboed, so let's just not. Tremendo Dude brought to my attention on Twitter a certain technique you can use against Byleth as Shulk. When you get grabbed by up B, just doing so will let Shulk escape from the up B at any percent and have priority. Meaning you can also true punish this with an aerial or something. So in conclusion, Shulk cheats. And if you're playing Byleth against a Shulk who's seen this tweet or this video, don't use up B. Next up, Cardboard asks if you can use Byleth's up B to pick up items. His up B looks pretty similar to Joker's, and for those of you who didn't know, Joker's up B does grab items. But unfortunately, Byleth's up B will not grab items. At most, you'll just destroy them. Talking about Joker's up B leads me to something I was quite curious about. Fun fact, but you can reflect Joker's up B with a reflector, like Hero's Bounce. But it's weird, because the grappling hook isn't a projectile, right? Does it even reflect? That's what I was curious about. So I wanted to see if it did actually reflect, so I threw in another CPU, one that Joker normally can't hurt. We've been over this on my channel before, but basically if the reflection did work, then Joker would harm his fellow CPU. But as the grappling hook went back to Joker after being reflected, the other Joker CPU remained unaffected. So it doesn't seem like any reflective property happened. I don't really get it, but I at least wanted to get that out of the way. And for the last fact of this video, 45 factorial states the mechanics of Byleth's up B regarding stamina mode. See, Byleth's up B is unique. When you use it at low percent, the opponent will be bounced up, but at high percent, the opponent will be spiked. However, this transition isn't based on knockback, but rather damage. If the opponent has over 50% at this point of the move, they'll be spiked. But if they have under 50%, they'll be bounced up. Since this is independent of knockback, it'll always be like this, even if the opponent has buffs or debuffs that change their knockback. Being shrunk makes you take more knockback, yet under 50%, Jigglypuff will get sent upwards, and can even get KO'd off the top. But just above 50%, she'll get spiked. And in stamina mode, this transition happens once you reach half of your total health. In this case, starting out at 250 HP, it happens at around the 125 mark. This makes sense too, since in stamina mode, the knockback is the same all throughout. If this change in function was based on knockback, the move would just never spike. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed the brand new installment of Random Smash Facts. I hope to get back into the grind a little bit better. I know the month of January was a bit slow. Stick with me fellas, it's gonna be a fun ride. And thanks again to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring today's video. Link to download the app is in the description. Stay casual, and I'll see you later.